I have to keep this here. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. So this is going to be, really fun. We all have mics, and I have this big mic, and it does nothing in this space. It is exclusively for our online audience. So that's a kind of fun experience. So what that means is, hopefully, we're all going to use loud, proud actor voices, but we're also going to have someone in the back going like this. So if at any point you can't hear us, the theater gesture you can too use is this. And if we see you do this, we'll know that we're not talking loud enough. Cool? Beautiful. Welcome to our 4th annual Disrupt event, and the first time that we are trying a hybrid experience of both in person and online. Teresa. We take ourselves very seriously here at Mirror Image Arts. If you're joining us online, I'd love for you to pop into the chat where you are watching from. My name is Maya. I am the Executive Director of Programs here at Mirror Image Arts and the moderator for this evening. To begin, I would love to ask the MIA staff and board to stand up and wave so we all see who makes this happen. Thank you. Thank you. We are MIA. We're a youth advocacy organization utilizing restorative theater to disrupt the pipeline to prison. And we work in spaces of prevention, intervention, and reintegration. We have a passion and purpose of collective liberation for all. There are a ton of incredible community members, both here in person and online. So I'm going to take just a moment to give some shout outs to our advocacy partners and funding partners. So also, if you're in the room and you want to stand or wave so that our whole community can also celebrate the incredible work that you all do. I'm going to start with some of our advocates who work alongside us in the Colorado Youth Justice Collaborative. So we have Fully Liberated Youth. Yay, we celebrate. We have Transformative Justice Project. We have National Center for Youth Law, maybe online. We have online also Justice Engaged Students Colorado and Generation Schools Network. And then a longtime partner who is also online is the Longmont Community Justice Partnership. We are trying to save trees, so there is a QR code for the program. You can see it online. All of these organizations, we have descriptions about them. We have ways that you can click on their websites to learn more about what they do, continue to support them, and all of the incredible things they are doing for our communities. So thank you for all of the work that you all do. And we also want to give a shout out to Coco Pelli and Captive Brand who helped make tonight happen. And I have to give a shout out, the very own Erin Jorgensen, who is the founder of Mirror Image Arts, is here this evening. And I'll just share one of the ways that I always talk about our work to anyone is that one of the most amazing through lines that we have had from the very, very beginning that was Erin's vision was the need for trusted adults in young people's lives. And that was a huge part of Erin's vision for this entire organization and something that we still hold very true to our hearts and how we do the work. So thank you for planting the seed. We appreciate you. To start out the evening, I thought I would take a moment to share a quick story, the origin story as to why we're all in this room together. And I'm going to hopefully not cry as I get through it. On July 21st, 2023, I sat in a courtroom, witness to a loving mother watch a shackled son be told by a judge with almost a sense of pride that his time in prison would most likely not be rehabilitative, and that his term served, a positive outcome, would be a miracle. Seth then turned around, looked his mother in the eyes, gave a slight head nod and a wave before being escorted away. After leaving the courtroom, I formally met Nicole for the first time. We hugged, we cried, and she courageously shared her story and the obstacles she, Seth, and her family faced growing up. I listened to a mother who adored her son, try everything she could to navigate our judicial system completely alone, in despair, unseen, and unheard. And that was the catalyst to the newest endeavor at MIA and our reintegration work. In this very room that we are all sitting at, we at MIA are dreaming and planning of a fully functioning reintegration center. The Brighter Future Center will be the culmination of our reintegration work. We are excited to begin programming in this coming year, which will include monthly healing circles for moms and guardians of incarcerated and previously incarcerated youth. I am so grateful to be up here with this incredible panel of three amazing individuals with different perspectives, lived experiences, and stories to share with us about this important and hard work. So I'm going to begin by introducing Seth's mom, Nicole, the origin story to all of this work, and a huge inspiration to me. Nicole is a community member, a youth advocate, a restorative justice advocate, and a parent of a system-impacted youth. I'd love for us all to just give a round of applause to say hello to Nicole. Next, I'm going to actually introduce Natalie, who's over here. Just to keep it spicy, we're going to not go in order all the time. Oh, don't you worry. Natalie is the co-founder of Fully Liberated Youth. She is a licensed professional counselor. She's trained in EMDR and MI. She's a restorative justice practitioner, a youth advocate, and someone I admire and am deeply grateful for the support and guidance she has given me over the years. Let's give a round of applause for Natalie. And last, but certainly not least, the one and only Gabe. Gabe joined MIA in July as our development officer and an apprentice mentor. Gabe is a restorative justice advocate, youth advocate, and a reintegrated community member. Let's welcome Gabe. Obviously, it's in the name. We are Mirror Image Arts. We do use theater as our main modality, but I was just saying to a few people that unlike me, most of the people on my team are artistic in numerous ways. And so I just wanted to start by giving a moment for Gabe and Michael to come up and share. They are the incredible artists of the artwork that is behind you. And so we always try and give a platform for our artists to get to speak a little bit to their work. So Michael, if you want to either pop up from there or come into this very bright light. Well, yes, you do. Walking, working, walking. Yes. Yes, look at that. Hi, welcome.
It's so nice to see you.
I guess, do I have to do this so we hear Michael online?
It's so nice to see you.
Thank you. Please tell us about your artwork.
I absolutely can. So behind us is a work of art that me and Gabe were able to collaborate on. First and foremost, I want to say Gabe is probably one of the most beautiful people I know. His story is so impactful, and how he shares his story through art is so inspirational. So I want to say that. Behind us, we have two characters that are inspired by the youth that we work with. That being said, they're black and brown. Why? Because I'm black. You know what I'm saying? And I was raised by black people and brown people. And I thought it was very important for me to showcase the people that we serve, right? And the people that are very much so a part of the Mirror Image Arts community. So that is obviously blue and orange. We always rep in blue and orange, period. Period. What do you have to add, Gabe?
I would say.
Oh, you have a mic.
I would say that when when the opportunity to do this piece came around, I was like, man, this is kind of my niche. Like I always want to add my little flair into stuff, and so I shared a video that I did prior years, kind of similar to this, and I started thinking about like disrupt, like what are we trying to do? I'm new to the organization. I'm trying to really wrap my head around like what we're going to try to say. And Teresa came to me and said, "You should ask Michael to jump in on this with you." And I was like, "Cool, man. He's been here a lot longer than me. He's got the theater background." And so we got in here and we just kind of looked at it. We talked, and I feel like mine was very sterile. It was gonna be black and white, maybe some splatters, nothing fun or anything. And we had a great time. We put on Beyonce's new album, and
Please stream Cowboy Carter.
this ain't Texas, right? So, and we gigged and we grooved, and this is what we came up with. It's you have black and then a mixed race person coming together, just sharing their art, sharing their love for what we're trying to do. And we made Disrupt a little fun because it's hard work that we're doing. And that's kind of the message behind what's going on.
Thank you. So in true Disrupt fashion, we always begin the conversation with a written word piece that our panelists will respond to. So we had asked a student of ours to write a poem specifically for this evening. And we have our apprentice who is going to recite the poem. Our apprentice is a student of mine. He is no stranger to the MIA stage. I'm gonna ask Terrence to come on up. And also, because we don't have as many mics, I'm going to stand next to you and hold this for you. I do. I always want to be right near you.
All right. I'm going to read this poem. Or not. You guys ready?
Loud and proud. Your voice.
Times are hard. From being in a detention center to getting a second chance in life. I understand feeling all alone, like no one can accept me for my mistakes I've made. And the worst pain, never fully forgiving yourself. But remember, it's just a time and a mistake. It will soon pass, sorry. It will soon pass. And through that time, you learn how to change your actions. As you take the walk up the mountain and soon end up falling down again. From relapse to getting another charge, with you sitting on a rock looking out the cell window, not knowing if you will make it past the mountain of time. But remember, no one is perfect and everyone falls. What shows your true fight is you getting off the rock, pushing through, learning from those hard times. Through relapse, through feeling hopeless, through the tears, through the yelling, through the days that seem to never end, through the bruised fist from punching the wall. But through the hike, you learn to value friends and especially family. Someone to talk to that makes these falls bearable. Hard times will pass, and good times are right on the other side of the mountain. Oh shit, I'm sweating.
You're beautiful. Keep going.
Times where you're able to forgive yourself for those mistakes, where you don't have to rely on those drugs to take away the pain. Where you live a healthy life with healthier relationships. Ones where they don't judge you for mistakes. They don't judge you for oh shit. Sorry.
Don't apologize. You do great.
Ones where they don't judge you for your mistakes. They don't judge for feelings. Times where times where you wear a true smile on your face. In a world full of chaos and uncertainty, ones where you get a second chance outside of a cell, not being told what to do every second of every day, where you make where you make healthy choices like graduating high school, keeping a job, going to college, all the things that will be hard, all the things that will be hard to get to, but not hard, but not harder than what we have already gone through. So yes, this mountain has good times and bad times, but through the bad times, we find what we really want in our lives. Do I want to relapse? Will that help me graduate high school? Do I want to do I want to continue to push away love just because it hurts? Just because it hurt me once? But through this mountain, I found out who I want to become and what I want in my future. But sadly, hard times are just ahead. But maybe hard times aren't all that bad, because without them, who would I be?
Yeah. Okay. So one of the ways that we process in our programming at MIA is with something called a fill in the blank. So I'm going to ask our panelists to begin this conversation with a fill in the blank statement. So they're going to respond to this poem by starting with the sentence either I think, I wonder, or I feel. And we're going to start with Gabe.
I feel like I like that.
How come? Fair. Okay. Nicole?
I feel like it was spot on.
Yeah. Natalie?
I feel like I'm proud of the courage and bravery of our young people.
So one of the things that we do at MIA to respond is with what we call a heartbeat. So a heartbeat looks like this. So I'm going to ask everyone to give a heartbeat to these responses. And then if you haven't caught on, part of our thing at MIA is we do a lot of active participation. We call it voluntolding at MIA. So I'm going to just invite anyone who's online. You can fill into the chat your I think, I wonder, or I feel statement. And then there's no pressure. But if anyone in this in-person audience would like to also respond with an I think, I wonder, or I feel, either to the poem or the responses, we're going to just kind of go this way, and I'm going to just guide you along. And then at the very end, we'll do a collective heartbeat. So I'm going to just start over here. If there's anyone who wants to add, and I think, I wonder, I feel.
I feel hope.
I wonder how we can help.
And one more collective heartbeat. Beautiful. Another thing we do, because I'm just like, oh, we have a group of people, is to ground ourselves. That's a really important piece of the work. So how we do that is we all just take a deep breath out and then breathe in and out. What a beautiful audience. So much participation. Okay. So the last thing is I'm going to share just a little bit of context so that we all have some information on the conversation that's happening. Again, for those of you in person, on your QR code, if you look in the program, you'll have this information. If it's virtual, it should be appearing online. Recidivism, or returning back to prison, rates from the Colorado Department of Youth Services are staggering. After 1 year, the recidivism rate averages around 30.5%. And after 3 years, the recidivism rate averages around 54%. One of the most prominent challenges to successful reentry is the lack of aftercare services, which can be critical to reducing crime and improving youth outcomes. Those 10 outcomes, again, are in your program or should be showing up online. We're going to dig into just a few of them this evening with our panelists. So to begin with, I'm going to start with Nicole to speak to the barrier connected to family and social support. So there are 10 major barriers to reentry. Seth was incarcerated for 4 years from 17 to 21. What were the initial challenges to adjusting as a family and a mom upon his return?
Not knowing what to do, what to expect. No one gave us any kind of information at all. They let him out on his 21st birthday and said, here you go.
Yeah, thank you. Natalie, and just so you know, I have also told my panelists that they can have a conversation with each other. So if at any point they interrupt me, hopefully they will. Natalie, youth often lack access to proper mental health services and support. From your experience, can you share the mental and emotional state youth are experiencing upon release?
Of course, I get a phone call right whenever. Yeah. So I think the place I would start, and Maya was alluding to this in Nicole's question of our DYS system, which stands for the Division of Youth Services, is a system that is not rehabilitative. It does not provide the resources that adequately our young people and clients need. I've been in this work for about 10 years, and we've seen the cyclical cycle of recidivism in our young people coming in and out of the system, from juvenile incarceration to adult incarceration, for countless years. And I think fundamentally, one thing we lack within our DYS system, and we intentionally as an organization do not say juvenile justice, because the system is flawed and it's built to perpetually do what it's doing, and it's not producing justice. So it's actually a system of punitive nature. So for us, I think fundamentally what we have seen is the system as a whole is lacking reintegration, rehabilitative support. So when we think about our young people, oftentimes they are the most traumatized bodies an adolescent can experience. And you are putting hundreds, Lookout alone houses about 150 young men. Mount View houses, I think, closer to 200. You are talking about the most traumatized young people in the state of Colorado, and you are housing them in one location. So upon release, oftentimes something, super therapy word is called homeostasis. We teach our young people this word because it gives them an understanding and education as to why their bodies naturally do something like self-sabotage. So they might be 3 months out of incarceration, they're ready to transition, things have been going smoothly, they just got their ID, they're pumped, they're ready to move out. And maybe a month before release, they self-sabotage. And this is a really common reality. I see Terrence back there shaking his head. I worked with Terrence at Lookout, and this is a super common behavioral pattern. And the reason for is our youth's body for so many years of incarceration have adapted to homeostasis. So it's basically their scientific way of saying their bodies have adapted to home base. And whether the home base is healthy or unhealthy, their bodies have found a safe haven, somewhat safe. And somewhat of their needs were getting met. They had shelter, they had food, they had peers. But they're on the brink of like fear, depression, anxiety, perpetual PTSD. And not only do they enter that place experiencing aspects of trauma, they're also leaving that place with perpetual trauma, because the system as it stands is not producing resources and adequate services and health for our young people. So more often than not, what we have seen is a lot of self-sabotaging, which is a product of a trauma response. Their bodies have adapted to a sense of comfortability inside of incarceration. So they're leaving with a lot of fear. So they end up sabotaging. That pushes out their release date for some time or something of that nature. And we're seeing a lot of fear, anxiety, depression, and a perpetual cycle of complex trauma. And I think another factor that's fundamental in transition is folks often think that it's like, oh, just because you're being released, you must have got all the services you needed, you're rehabilitated, you got a therapist, you're ready to go. And then they go back into the community and they're put back into the exact same neighborhood, exact same dynamic at home, exact same peers on the block. Most of the young people we work with at Fly are all deeply gang involved. And if we know anything about gang involvement, it is a product of poverty, racism, and systemic oppression. That's what births violence in this city. So for us, it's reminding ourselves when our youth are reintegrating in society, they're experiencing fear, depression, anxiety, complex trauma. Their nervous systems are like super heightened. They're going back into very similar situations in which they came in at. So part of the reintegration healing journey in the center that's being produced is like it's multidimensional. It has to involve the family. It has to involve the youth. It has to involve the community. And more often than not, our kids are in deep states of fear because they're entering back into what always was a potential state of trauma for them.
Thank you. That's a perfect segue, Gabe, into sharing a bit more of your personal experience. So I'd love for you to speak upon social stigma, community, and reintegration. And I have two specific questions. While serving your sentence, when did you start thinking about your release? And then what did you imagine it would be like? And then what was the actual reality?
So,
This mic second. So you just hold this.
okay. All right, cool. Sounds good. Wow, that's I'll try to be very, very quick. And those of you that know me know that's not gonna happen. Man, I can remember getting my date, and that's how we say it, right? And you don't share your date with anybody because some people aren't going home when you are. Some people are never going home, and you hold that date near to your heart, but you don't think about it. You know, you do years in terms of holidays until those holidays get to be too hard to look forward to. You do time in terms of the phone call that you're going to allow to be made, and know that while you're already hurting your family, you're hurting your people. When they pick that phone up, you're hurting them more because they're being charged outrageous amounts just to be able to hear their voice. I'm from California, so I don't know how Colorado. I've never done time in Colorado, but I know in California, in California State Prison, they give you what's called S time. So it's 2 weeks before you go home. So even as you hold that date close to your chest and you try to hide it, everybody in in the institution can see that your routine has changed. And so the next 2 weeks isn't about thinking. It's not selfishly thinking about what I'm going to do when I get out. It's selfishly thinking, how am I going to make it to that date to get out? How am I going to avoid getting a mix with somebody else where they screw your date off or something like that? And then the other thing that Natalie was speaking to, I mean, here I am. I'm a I've been out of prison for 18 years, and I'm barely learning what reintegration is.
Hmm.
I mean, most of you have probably seen Shawshank Redemption when Morgan Freeman walks in and he says, that's just a made up word for you politicians to use. But when I hear somebody so elegantly like explain it like that, it really hurts, because the hardest thing to do is to hope for something better when you know you're not going to be better. You're not going to be better because there was no system put in place to prepare you for that. I remember, and I'll move on to the next question. I remember somebody asked me, why do you keep going back? And I said, because my family only loves me long enough until they remember who I was when I left. Think about that for a minute. They're so excited to see me come home because they miss me. But when they realize that nothing's changed, that I haven't changed, that I'm the same exact person that left, and that love disappears, it makes it easier to make that decision to want to go back because maybe you have one more chance of being loved.
I think we have to share that microphone. You gotta bring it to me.
Oh, I got to bring.
It's you and me. You and me are going back and forth. Thank you. I'm gonna come back to Natalie for another question. Can you share what are the trends or initiatives you're seeing across the state of Colorado to address or support previously incarcerated youth that are working, I'll put in quotes, or at least giving you hope?
Prior to this, Ellie and I were talking with some folks in the back, and Ellie made a statement of about change, like how much change are we actually, producing? And I think I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'm a firm believer that we would not be here right now if we didn't have hope. So what do I think is working? I'm coming off of, I had a young man I had worked with since he was 15 for the last 7 years, just get convicted or sentenced to 48 to 60 years in prison on Thursday. So I'm in the headspace of cursing up the wall at the system. But I think legislatively, we are seeing inching slowly, I think, towards more hope in the city of Denver. I can't speak for national, statistics, but the state of Colorado, the city of Denver, we're pivoting where we are incarcerating less youth, which is a good thing, but the dollars aren't matching up to the needs in the community. So I think something in which we are doing good is legislatively we're inching closer towards things. I think the things that have to catch up are if we all pay attention to where our tax dollars go, where legislators decide to put particular dollars, you will quickly find out that a lot more dollars are getting put in the DYS system than they are getting put in education or into community reform. Significantly more dollars. We spend roughly $150,000 to incarcerate one juvenile a year. $150,000, our tax dollars. And I think we spend roughly $8,000 on a kid's education a year. So are we incarcerating less youth? Yes. And we need the dollars to now match the needs in the community, because these youth are no longer getting incarcerated for petty charges, which they shouldn't be anyways. And more often than not, youth are getting charged for more aggravated, first-degree murder, second-degree murder, assault, aggravated cases. And they're trying to maintain youth engagement in the community. So that brings me hope. And yet we have a long way to go legislatively, and yet the dollars need to match the needs now. I think what also brings me hope is the community, us, people who care, people who are investing time, energy, money, all of it. So I think community efforts, community nonprofits, people who are made up of the community and are for the community. What continuously gives me hope on the daily is my young people. So our clients, the people we serve, the people we're with, they always are the pillar people who give me hope, at least. So yeah, I think we systematically are shifting slowly. I think Denver, quite frankly, likes to think they're a very progressive city. If you actually get to know some of our lawmakers, we're not really that progressive. So I think the perpetual push legislatively, we're inching there, and that gives me hope. I think y'all in this room, people who are wanting to educate themselves and be in spaces, that gives me hope. And we have some really dope nonprofits that Maya listed off even earlier, people in this room and people online that are doing really amazing things. So those give me hope.
Thank you. Gabe, I'm going to come to you, and then Nicole, we're going to come back to you. Reintegration, as we've said, is the newest frontier for us here at MIA. I'm curious if you can share, how would this programming have helped you as a young person?
Don't speak yet.
Can I speak now? She's telling me what to do up here. Oof. Yeah, I've thought about that a lot, and it's really hard to go back in time and say like what I what would I need, what would have helped me to succeed. I was talking with Nicole in the hallway out there, and it was just like, I mean, even if it was available, like what would I have taken in? I'm speaking about me, just specifically. I again, just being a part of MIA for the short time that I've been here, it's like I'm being broken open again and being forced to like heal in places that I thought I was okay with, because we're talking about this work and what it could be like, and what what it what how it could change somebody. Again, like I'm just stuttering because it's just blowing me away, almost to the point of tears of how, like, I think of some of my kids that I've worked with. Is like, how would they even ask? What would they know? We can assume, we can try to plan. Um, I got specific people in my mind right now that it's just like trying to offer them that hope. And let me just give you an example. There was a young man that I worked with, and I remember telling my boss after I dropped him off at home, I said, I can spend 23 hours a day with that guy, and I can send him home for 1 hour and his family would mess him up. I'm still in contact with that young man, and I've seen how life's gone, and I'll take that statement all the way if any of his family has a problem with it, because that's exactly what it is. Um, so with what we are looking forward to do here, and the things that we're talking about, like providing, and again, I'm new to this, so help me if I'm not saying this right, is providing the most essential basic needs first. Every program I've ever been through, every release cycle, everything I've ever done has been how I perform. It's been performance based. It's like, you will get this if you do this, and if you don't do this, this will be removed from you. And so a new way of thinking and saying, it's not. I mean, yeah, we're going to need to see some performance, but it's meeting the basic immediate needs right now and not dangling them over them as a carrot to get them to perform, is something that really excites me and gives me hope about sharing, and makes me want to go connect with other people in the community and say, these we can't just dismiss somebody because they made a mistake. Again, I was saying in the hallway, like I'm getting to experience what reintegration looks like right now for the first time in 18 years, of what it's like to be trusted, what it's like to be um, it's really hard, because like I wanted that. I know now that I wanted that for me. And now that we're offering it to these youth, I want to push harder for them to be able, just say, hey, don't turn away from this. Like, don't give up on yourself. We may not know exactly what to give you, but let's walk down that path before you throw it away, before you give up and end up in prison for the rest of your life. The last thing I'm going to say is that reintegration is it's a cuss word. It really is. It's a dirty word. There's nothing clean about it. There's nothing safe about it. There's going to be nothing easy about it. But I think with who we have as partners, who we have that are out there serving the people that are doing the work, I think that it's attainable.
Thank you, Gabe. That's why we got tissues up here. Nicole, I know this is a hard question to think back to, so you can answer it both of like, looking back on Seth being released, what would have helped you most in being a mother and in helping him, and moving forward, what would you need?
I guess part of mine is just he went in at 17 and came out at 21, and he was still that 17-year-old little boy. Life had passed him by. All he wanted to do was catch up. I would have liked to have, I guess for me, someone else that had had the experience, maybe another parent, someone, anyone to kind of help us walk through how I can explain to him that life has not passed him by. He doesn't need to catch up. He just couldn't get that. And I don't know if you're aware that a lot of the juveniles owe an extreme amount of restitution. Seth is up and around $300,000, and that's all he can see. Just someone to help us maneuver through that system, how to make that either go away or not affect his life. I don't think it's fair that that's going to affect the rest of his life, which at this point, I mean, it's going to no matter what. And that's what he sees. And it kind of left him hopeless and just not having any idea where to turn. We came from some pretty extreme abuse, years and years and years and years of counseling that didn't ever help us. So I don't think that Seth would have agreed to, something like that again. But like she said, like the groups or, more people involved, parents, I think that would have maybe helped us at the time. I'm not sure. You're just very lost at that point in time. And like I said, Seth was still that same 17-year-old little boy that went in that just didn't understand. Still doesn't. And obviously he only made it 2 months and he's in prison. Hopefully he'll be out in the next year and a half, but my son has been gone for 6.5 years. And I think it's going to be even harder when he gets out this time because we don't know him anymore. I mean, I talked to him on the phone, but you don't get to see these kids. It's very difficult. And, no touching, no hugging, the love of his family, all that's lost. All that's lost. And
Thank you. Can I just have everyone breathe out and take a deep breath in and out? So re-regulating our bodies is one of the tools that we as an organization work on for ourselves, but also try and work with our youth on. And I'm always reminded of the importance of breath. Thank you. I have a few more questions before we close out tonight's evening. Natalie, I'm going to come back to you. You've touched on it in different ways, but knowing that some people and systems that currently hold most of the keys to reintegration are also the people or systems who are perpetuating harm, who all needs to be at the table that either isn't or needs to be more active at the table as a community to welcoming youth back in?
Can I actually make a statement off of something Gabe
Always.
said earlier?
Yes.
And then we asked me that question.
I would love to.
Gabe, I think you said something that was like super powerful of like performance. And it's like digging in my brain because I think the system loves to operate off of like behavior modification and not true healing. So like something we see all the time in our facilities is like, they'll be like, we don't want this kid to fight anymore. It's like, okay, we don't want this kid to, be causing havoc in this pod. And they're like, we're gonna incentivize them with a bag of chips. And the kid's like, yeah. And so they're like, great, don't fight for a week. And at the end of the week, we'll give you a bag of chips. Kid's like, done. Friday comes around, kid gets a bag of chips. What does he do on Saturday? Gets in a fight. Because we're not addressing, like you are continuously performing, you're continuously doing without truly healing. And the system just thinks it's like, it's not restorative, it's not reintegration, it's not healing, it's like, and that is why we perpetually, consistently have a system such as this. And make no mistake, this isn't a broken system. This is a system that was created to do exactly what it's doing. It's working. So yeah, I think you dinged such a good part of the system is expecting, brown and black bodies to magically perform in these ways without like actually getting to the root of the healing. Sorry, that was dinging in my mind.
Yeah.
What's the
Thank you.
question?
Yeah. So as you've mentioned, this system was built to do exactly what it does, which means that currently there are those who hold the keys to reintegration that are perpetuating that system of harm. So who all needs to be at the table to make real change?
The Terrences of the world, the Gabes of the world, the people with the lived experience in these places. If folks don't know, like, the history of incarceration, you had mass incarceration hitting its, glory years in the Reagan-Nixon administration. You had the crack versus cocaine, and you had an influx in the 70s and 80s of mass incarceration, and it specifically was intended to lock away brown and black bodies. And the cycle continues. And now we, organizationally, are working with the grandchildren of the grandparents who are part of the Nixon and Reagan administration and mass incarceration that flooded the whole nation. We're now working with the generation, this like cyclical cycle of incarceration. So yes, the people who currently sit at the table, not always, are often people who are perpetuating the cycles of harm. I'm looking out here and we have someone who I respect and sits at these tables that doesn't perpetuate this harm. So there's people on the inside who are intending to do the needed good work, and yet there are people, who it's not the case. And in my ideal world, like, who sits at this table? It's our folks with lived experience. It's our brown and black bodies. It's folks who are coming in with, the stories and the proximity to the pain and the people who see it truly for like its real raw realities. And it's not the lawmakers, it's not the 1%, it's not the folks who, force and rule and hold the power. It's the community, for the community, by the community. Folks with lived experience, like, these are the people that need to be at the table.
Thank you. Nicole, I'm going to come back to you. Can you share from your experience, especially with youth or with Seth in a youth detention center, were you offered any type of restorative justice practices, approaches at all during his time? If so, what were they? What was effective? And if not, either why do you think that was the case, that you weren't offered those things, or how do you feel like it would have helped you and Seth?
Well, when Maya first asked me that question earlier, I'm like, what, restorative justice? What? I don't understand. What are you talking about? There was nothing like that. These people were not there to help us in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion. It was all about punishment for Seth. They even moved Seth all the way across the state because they felt like me and his siblings were too involved with him. Which was devastating. For the trauma that happened to Seth that put him in there, there was no way for him to ever talk about it or to work through it. I think he still holds on to that, like, how does he ever work through that? And his case manager was one of the worst people I've ever met in my life. So I don't feel like there was any kind of restorative anything, quite frankly. Like I said, Seth was 17 when he went in, and he was 17 when he came out. He just lost 4 years of his life.
Thank you. Do you feel like what would have helped you if there had been any type of restorative justice approaches or practices, how would that have helped you as Seth's mom?
I guess it would have helped me to understand just maybe the system. It just the system made no sense to me once he was placed there. Well, the whole court system just made no sense. Helping, I guess, like his case manager to explain things to us maybe, and asking her, you know, how he's getting help, you know, what's being done. And she just, like, I might as well have been asking for $1 million. Just anybody to help explain anything to us, quite frankly, would have been helpful.
Thank you. Gabe, I'm going to come to you for our final question. So this is from an audience. Having been incarcerated for a long time, one of the things I really struggled with was knowing what I needed and how to actually accept support. Was there a person in your life that just wouldn't quit on you? What was the moment things started to click and your mindset shifted from just trying to survive to believing you deserve to thrive? Oh.
Oh, man. Terrence. Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's a few things. I want to touch real quick on what Nicole said. I just was so, again, just drawn to her because I don't think I ever looked at my mom as someone who didn't have it figured out. You know, so like when I went in, it was like she figured out how to put money on my books on her own. She figured out how to come see me. She figured all this stuff out, and so yeah, that just pains me when, you know, I hear her talk. You know, damn, I was gonna say something that just slipped my mind. I remember that, you know, when I was sitting, you know, in the courtroom for the first time, and it was my first time I was headed to prison, and you know, my public defender came over and he whispered what they were offering me, and I said, you know, give me a minute, and I looked over to my mom out, you know, in the audience, and I went like this. I said, and she mouthed the words 5 months, and I said, no, Mom, 5 years. And, you know, to see her just like fall apart, like, oh my God, like the wind got taken out, you know, from her, like, um, and then going in and just, yeah, the resources that resources, if you'll allow me, um, there was, it was non-existent. I think that one of the first things that I saw, and I'll get to the question, one of the first things I saw with MIA that I've shared over and over again is we were doing a training, and somebody asked for the group of people, and you're going to hear me say this 100 times as long as I'm with MIA, is they said the word prison, and everybody in the room acted it out a certain way. And there was somebody, I won't say who, but they dropped down into a push-up position. And to me, it spoke to me because it was like, that's what I did. I worked out to stay out of trouble. I worked out to stay strong. You know, I found my own ways. And so um, when I think about like the moment that it finally hit me, you know, that what I actually need somebody, it was my last term. I was released into a kind of a men's home, a discipleship style home where 12 men were in this room, about a quarter of the size of the room we're in right now. And I'm an ex-gang member, you know, and I'm looking at all the people in the room, and I'm thinking to myself, I was like, man, I really need a friend right now. I really need somebody. And I found somebody who had, a friend of mine who had gotten out of prison prior. He was the reason why I went to the program. And I watched the way that he programmed. and I watched the way and I followed him, and I learned how to behave in a different way, so to speak. It wasn't healthy by any means, because he ended up letting me down when he showed up high one day and took off, and it was like I was so dependent on him for keeping me out of prison that when he failed, I thought to myself it would only be a matter of time before I failed. Um, the program that I was involved in, I think one of the main things that really helped me move forward is that it was very service oriented. So we did stuff from the second we woke up until we went to bed. It really taught me to appreciate what free time was. When we got free time, I mean, most people just went and slept because we were so exhausted from. And I think that was good for me. I think it was good. It didn't work for everybody in the group because the 12 kept changing and kept switching over. But I think that sorry, I'm on a tangent. What was the last part of the question? Because I really want to.
What was, if you can pinpoint, was there a moment when things shifted in your mindset from surviving to believing that you deserve to thrive?
Yeah. So I enrolled in college. Was 30 years old, and I'd been out like 11 months, and I was like, you know what, I want to learn. I was smart when I was younger. I got my diploma. I mean, school wasn't hard for me to learn. It was just hard for me to function. And so I enrolled in college, and I met these people that were fascinated with me. And the first thing you think is like, hey, don't pet the poor. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not your little, your little toy that's going to tell you all my stories and stuff. But one guy in particular was one of my teachers, and he was also kind of like my guidance counselor. And I would spend an hour with him. He didn't have to, and I sat with him, and he would just listen to everything that was going on. So I would say the biggest thing was like having a non-judgmental ear, but also somebody that wasn't like um I don't know how to say this nice. Like a fan. Like they just wanted to be around me to be entertained by the things that I went through. Like I saw genuine sorrow when I shared what I had done, and that just kind of happened. I tried. Long story short, I tried connecting with people that had my past, thinking, man, if this guy did as much time, and this guy was a gang member, and this guy was a drug addict, that man, maybe he would, I can get something from him. But what it turned out to be for me, just in my experience, was a pissing contest. Sorry. It was, we were basically, we ended up bragging back and forth. Well, you did this much, I did this much time. You did this much dope, I did this much dope. And it hit me one day that if I wanted to learn how to be a husband, which I never saw that modeled in my life, then I needed to find a man who I watched him be a good husband. And so, as hard as it was, I gathered myself and I went up to this man. I said, I've seen you around your wife, and I really, man, would you just teach me how to be a great husband? I never had anybody teach me how to be a good father. So I went and I looked for a man that I saw him treat his kids the way I always wanted to be treated. And I took that initiative on my own. And I think a lot of my self-worth came through my faith experience. That's really what carried me. I think if I didn't have my faith experience, then I would have went back to prison. And I hold on to that very, very, very dearly. But it also gave me the boldness to seek out those men that also have the same faith as me. And it's just like everything just lined up to get me to where I'm at now. And it's like now the healing really begins
Mm.
because of the work that I'm going to get to be a part of, getting to, you know, a young man that I'm blessed enough to mentor is in this room. And we constantly text each other back. And I told him the other day, I go, we're kind of struggling with this because we're identical, man. We don't want to bother one another, right? We don't want to ask for anything because we're men, right? I don't want to be too vulnerable, man, because you might hurt me. And this is where that healing's gonna begin for me, and hopefully, for this young man. And then as we start to create what it is that this brighter future center is going to be, I'm just excited. I'm excited to be a part of it and to be able to be broken while it's happening. You know, when I was hired, they didn't say, how fixed are you?
Thank you to this incredible panel. Let's give them another huge round. As we close out, I have just a few more things and then we'll send everyone on their way. As we have said, this work is not an easy task. It will take everyone to be committed and involved. And there are several ways that you can do that. One, again, please review the one pager, look up the other organizations that are also doing incredible work that I feel deep gratitude to work alongside, support them, go to their events, spread the word. You can sign up for our newsletter if you're not already. That's a great way to stay involved and find out about upcoming events like our annual gala, I Got Your Back, on September 20th. We actually have a really fun way to get involved. If you donate tonight, you will get put into a raffle for one night stay at the brand new Residence Inn by Marriott in Old Town, Arvada. So you can have a fun date night. We are trying to raise $20,000 this evening that would all go towards supporting our Brighter Future programming and this eventual center. I think that's everything, Teresa. Did I forget anything? I can ask. Oh, thank you. I can always ask my co. Again, thank you to this incredible panel. Thank you to being committed to this work, to coming out on a Monday evening. Thank you all for helping us to create a brighter future. Have a wonderful evening.